everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight, I just have our Wizard of Wait What, Shinoda.
'Tis a rainy day.
It is. It's. We don't even live in the same place, but I can tell you it's exactly like it is here. Welcome to summer in Florida, everybody. But tonight, Shinoda, you and I are going to be talking about something we have looked forward to for a while now. In fact, ever since the winter season, we've been talking about doing this.
Yup.
So tonight, we are going to be doing a spoiler cast of the winter 2019 through spring 2019 anime known as Dororo. Now, since this is a Dororo. It's Dororo's younger cousin. Show made that joke multiple times during the run of this show that Dororo was Dororo's cousin.
God damn it, that's actually a beautiful joke.
But yeah, this is gonna be a spoiler cast, so we will be spoiling anything and everything you can imagine tonight. I do want to say, though, before we get started, if you haven't seen Dororo yet and you don't want to be spoiled, first of all, I think it's safe to say, Shinoda, that you and I both highly recommend this series.
Seriously, if you haven't watched it yet, dear God, go watch it. Do not listen to any of our spoilers.
Yes.
Go watch it.
And I do want to be specific. We're spoiling the 2019 remake of Dororo, not the original 1969 anime.
Neither of us has seen the original or read the manga.
No, we haven't.
Reference.
For reference, we're just going to be talking about the 2019 Studio Mappa and Tezuka Productions remake of the original anime, both of which are based on a manga by Osamu Tezuka, aka the father of anime. So yeah, with that little and with that little thing out of the way, let's get to the spoilers, Shinoda, because God knows we've been looking forward to this for a while.
Oh boy, yeah, let's go.
All right, so I think a really great place to start is, well, surprisingly, with the beginning. I think I want to talk specifically about how some of the characters are introduced in this story. Because I think the two main characters of this anime, Hyakimaru and Dororo, are introduced perfectly. I honestly can't think of a way that they could have been introduced better.
It was really natural.
Especially Hyakimaru. Like, he's almost introduced as this living doll kind of character because he has no limbs, he has no face, he has nothing. And he's introduced as like this badass who's had to learn how to live with a disability.
More than a disability. The disability.
Well, yeah, many disabilities.
Like, I'm gonna say this straight up. Like, you have to ignore thinking about his body if you want to just enjoy it. Because otherwise you're just gonna be like, he shouldn't be alive. Like, there's no way possibly he should be alive.
No, and I mean, and he's sort of introduced before then because you actually get to witness his birth, and the birth is his mother is having difficulties in labor, and the lord of this domain that he lives in goes to what's known as the Hall of Hell to basically plead to demons to, take whatever they want from him, so that the land that he owns or rules over, which has fallen on some hard times, can, be prosperous again. And what they end up taking from him is all of these limbs and senses and everything from his firstborn child, who would be his heir.
Wait, they did that he did that before she was giving childbirth, though.
I know. I'm just saying it's what you see before. Yeah, Hyakimaru is technically introduced twice.
Yeah, sorry. Like, you said that in a weird way. Like,
yeah, I probably should have done it the other way around. Yeah. But Hyakimaru it's technically introduced twice because you actually see his birth, But then there's a huge time skip, and then you see him again when he's, learned to live with how he was born, which I thought was an interesting choice. Like, if you had just introduced Yakimaru the way he was, like, in, when he first meets Dororo, I don't think it would have been nearly as poignant. Because when you see Yakimaru the second time, that this is the same child that was essentially given up. Like, because he was born without skin or eyes or a nose or anything.
A literal sacrifice to the demons.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, Daigo said take whatever you want, so
that's what they did.
Be careful what you wish for, man. You just might get it. But yeah, I thought that was, story-wise, I thought that was great. And then seeing him again when he's sort of grown up and he has these like artificial limbs and stuff that he uses to fight with. First of all, can we just say for a second that the sword hands were pretty damn cool?
Oh, that was like seriously badass. Like, I was just looking at those, I'm like, holy shit. Like, that doesn't seem terribly effective. But then you see him go in and use them, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
He literally uses them to essentially their full effect. He's not just killing, it's more of an art form that he is doing.
Yeah, pretty much. Not bad for someone without eyes.
Lacking all senses, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and the only thing he can see, but it's just like they term it the fire of the soul in the show, which I thought was a great way to put it. Like, he can see the aura of life around him. So I think the show has it to where if they're basically good people, they have like this white hue to them. If they're demonic or they have evil in their hearts, they have like a shade of red. And then there are other colors you see. There's green, blue. It's never really explained explicitly what those colors are.
Green is plant life and blue is just natural life, if I remember right.
Well, I was curious about that because in a later portion of the story, you see one of well, fuck it. What was Yakimaru's brother called? I can't remember now.
Oh. What?
Taomaru.
Yeah.
Taomaru. You see one of his underlings, the samurai that are with him all the time. You see the weapon that he wields is outlined in blue, and I'm thinking maybe it's made out of wood? I don't know. I just thought it was weird that something that doesn't have any life to it would be even visible to him, but maybe it is.
I mean, they showed repeatedly other things that have stuff like that, so I think that's where it's based off of.
Fair enough. And then the second half of the titular character herself, Dororo's introduction, I think was perfect as well, because within a few minutes you can kind of see where Dororo's coming from without having to know a lot about her.
You can tell her personality, you can tell what she's like, you can tell what she's about to do, all within the first 5 minutes of...
She's a grifter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's she's a grifter. She's basically just a homeless grifter.
You can literally tell everything about her in the first 5 minutes, but there's so much more to her.
She steals shit.
Yeah. She does what she has to survive.
Fucking trying to sell stolen merchandise.
In the same city as well, from what it
seems like.
In the
same city it was stolen from.
That takes some serious balls.
Yes, and then passing them off as like fucking like premium wares from the capital, I think is the...
She was trying to be a little salesman. I have to give it to her.
She was
and
the capitalist.
People were actually like paying attention to her, like, oh really, like. She was impressive.
It's like those carnival barkers. They noticed that you have your eye on something. It's like, hey, I'll throw in this dried fish. It's like, oh, you little salesman. I love that introduction because within like 5 minutes you get an absolute complete picture of who Dororo is supposed to be.
Yeah. And
I just
everything
don't think
else
it could have
on
been done
top
any
of
better.
that only expands on that and
Oh yeah.
grows her character. You don't have to find out little things here and there along the way. You see
Oh,
it
I
happening.
I also loved it that when Dororo meets Hyakimaru for the first time and she sees him like BTFO that demon thing. Um, her first reaction is, "Hey, I bet we could go around making money doing that."
Yeah, like not even the initial shock of like holy shit, demons are real and they kill in
Yeah,
absolutely horrifying ways. No, not even all that. Like
I bet we could
money.
monetize this. It tells you all you need to know about Dororo. And I like the fact that this the story very early on is um framed as a hero's journey, which is what it is. What that's exactly what it is. I mean, you can call this a shonen. I think it actually is listed as a shonen on my anime list. It is. Um, it's a hero's journey, is what it is. God, it's listed. Samurai is a genre.
What?
Okay.
Okay.
I, I I'm not even gonna argue with it. Like Mal has some really weird genres. Apparently, demons is a genre too. um, but I like how very early on this is framed as a hero's journey, and as it progresses, it becomes very obvious that's what it is because you watch these two main characters grow throughout the course of the story, and you start to notice that very early on. Uh, so early on, in fact, I think what was it the second real uh the second major story arc is where they meet Mio.
Yeah. Was that the
That
second
was
major or was that
something.
the first?
Oh,
No,
well,
that was this.
it was episodes 5 and 6, but it was really the second major story arc. Um,
What was before
I will
then?
say the Bandai story was really good because that's where you meet the that's where you see the priest character in the first episode, but you really meet him in the second episode.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I can see how that second
Can we
arc.
talk about him for a second?
Okay.
The priest character, because although when we started this out, we said that we had never seen both of us had never seen the original anime nor read the original manga.
Just because we
Um,
haven't seen or read it doesn't mean we didn't do our research.
we did do a little bit of research. I did. So apparently he in number one in the original anime he was never even given a name. Uh, so that's something that's changed. Also, in the original manga, he has a slightly larger role in the story than he does in this anime. However, I want to talk about the fact that when the way he's introduced in the story, especially in the second episode, I thought, all right, this character is just going to be around for a couple episodes. It's going to be a minor character. I never envisioned that he'd be a recurring character.
I personally thought like, hey, it's a character and like we saw him on the first episode. I thought, okay, he'll probably make an appearance again here and there. I didn't think he'd be a major character, but it turns out he actually is.
Oh yeah, I thought his like story arc was pretty good. I like how he's sort of like this traveling wise man who just shows up whenever he's needed.
That is one thing that I sort of feel off about, the fact that a lot of his character felt very expositional, and that's
Hmm.
like really all there is to him, at least in the
Well,
2019.
you know, do you notice how there were some episodes of the show where there was an actual narrator?
Yes.
I'm assuming that's supposed to be him that's narrating it.
It was a different voice though, right?
It was a different voice. You're absolutely right. However, I still feel like it's meant to be him. Maybe an older version of him, even though he's already old already.
Possibly. Like him as the person who witnessed this story happening.
Yeah, yeah. Sort of like how uh, this is sort of a spoiler for Gurren Lagann, but how it's revealed at the very end that Simone is the one who's been narrating the whole story.
Huh.
I don't know. It's kind of the sort of vibe that I got, that there's someone in the story that's narrating it in the past tense.
I
Because anytime this narrator was talking, it always pretty much started with the phrase "back in those days."
maybe. Honestly, I'm not sure. It's quite possible.
Hmm.
I don't think
I don't know.
so, but yeah.
He was an interesting character though. The priest. I liked him a lot. I certainly I never expected him to become a recurring character.
Yeah. Like initially I was just a little bit off put and thought, "Oh, they're just going to use him as an expositional." But no, he actually does have personality to him and a little bit of wit. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
a good character still.
Yeah. He's the quintessential wise old man,
Yeah.
which I liked.
Always
I'm
got to have
turning
that.
into one of those. The old man part. I don't know about the wise part, but I'm definitely turning into the old man.
I'll agree with you on that.
Wow, you son of a bitch.
Anyway, since we
Oh man.
hit upon it a little bit, Mio, the second
Mm.
major arc.
Yeah, yeah. The second really major arc. I would say it's certainly one of maybe a couple of different turning points in the show. And it also brings up probably the first real moral conundrum of the story. Well, the first of several, I would actually say. Um, in that Dororo and Hakimaru end up meeting this woman who is caring for a bunch of orphaned children in this, I guess, like a burned out old temple at the top of a hill.
Yep.
And throughout the course of them staying there, they find out that in order to uh, help these children survive, in order to care for them, she's basically prostituting herself out every night
Yeah.
to make money.
Specifically,
And
Dororo was the only one that discovered it.
well,
I'm sure.
yeah,
What's his name? Bivamaru. Is that how you say it?
yeah, the
Yeah,
priest.
the priest. He shows up. And he picks up on things real quick. I'm sure he knew.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he understood too. But yeah, Dororo is the only one that actually sees it firsthand, and it it's also worth pointing out it's the first person that Hyakimaru forms any kind of or shows any kind of response to, because this happens right after he regains his hearing, and
A genuine
it the
attachment because her voice sounded so beautiful to him, and
yeah,
it's nothing like he's ever experienced before.
yeah,
And
and
he fell in
well,
love with it.
and regaining your like, because there are people out there who are like born deaf, who in real life, I mean, who because of certain surgeries and stuff will regain their hearing later in life. And there's a lot of them I have heard of who have a similar reaction to Hyakimaru, where everything seems very, very loud to them. And that's exactly what happens to Hyakimaru when he regains his hearing. Like, he has a hard time adjusting to it
I
because
can only
everything seems so
imagine
loud.
I can only imagine the type of migraine he had.
Yeah. That is something else that I think this story does really well. As Hyakimaru is regaining his limbs and his senses and everything, I think it does a really good job of portraying the trauma that would cause someone to suddenly go from having like no sense of pain to having a sense of pain, from having no sense of smell to having a sense of smell, from going from having no sense of hearing to having a sense of hearing. I thought it portrayed, because you could tell that he was very distressed by regaining some of these senses.
Oh yeah, for sure. The fact that he managed to survive the trauma of gaining them back is it speaks onto his own strength. honestly.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's certainly a strength of character. And the fact that he was able to overcome this. But that the fact that he hears Mio's song, and that's the only thing that he's able to really focus on and listen to without having to cover his ears because everything seems so loud. And it's the first real person that Hyakimaru like has any kind of connection with. And it's made all the more feelsy by him having to witness her get killed by a bunch of wandering samurai.
Not wandering samurai. What?
Well, okay, they're not technically wandering samurai, but they're not doing what they're doing because their lord told them to do it.
Um, Not specifically their lord, but their like acting commander.
Well, here's the thing. She was being a prostitute for both sides in a war. And one side found out that she was servicing men on the other side, and they took this as to mean that she could have been a spy.
Yeah, no, I mean that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they weren't acting on orders from anyone because they seemed to just gang up spontaneously on her. But
No, they were
if you
following
think about it,
orders, if I remember right.
if you think about it though, what they were doing was pretty smart. Like if you thought that someone was prostituting themselves to both your soldiers and the enemy's soldiers, that would be a great way to spy on people.
Oh no, it absolutely is, and it's been something that's happened all throughout history. So like,
Mm-hmm.
what from their perspective, they were just taking care of a potential security leak. Like, it's
Yeah. But this whole thing brings up really one of the first moral conundrums of the show, as I mentioned earlier, because Mio was not doing what she was doing because she enjoyed it, or not even because she was doing it for her own self-interest. She was doing it to help take care of the orphan kids that had come under her wing.
yeah. I mean, she
And
was doing it to survive, and like, I
yeah,
can understand
and
that,
to help the kids
and
survive.
help the kids survive because they're most of them were crippled. There's no way they could have
Yeah,
survived on their own.
yeah. Many of them were missing at least one limb. Um, but it brings up the question of, is it worth it to sacrifice your livelihood for the livelihood of others? And it's an interesting moral conundrum that many people throughout history have faced.
It's a tough
Uh,
question that like it all it doesn't have an overall answer. It just depends on what circumstance and all that. In this circumstance, it involved little kids, and like more than anything, kids deserve the chance to live and
yeah.
you know grow up to do something.
Now I want to ask you something. Do you think, because none of these kids that she was taking care of were her own kids?
Yep,
They were all orphans that she found
yep.
and brought together. Would it change anything if the kids that she was taking care of were all her own kids? Would that make it a more clear-cut moral decision?
I think it would. I think it would be
I think so
even
too.
more clear cut because and this is something we've always known throughout history. A mother will do anything at
Anything.
all. I mean anything to watch her kids survive and grow up healthy. Like
Mm-hmm.
the lengths they will go is unimaginable for so many people.
Yeah.
So,
And that's something else that's kind of touched on, not necessarily in this story, although it is slightly, but throughout the whole story of Dororo, it's touched on, especially towards the end, because you see what Dororo's and Tohomaru's mother actually goes through to make sure that not Dororo, Hyakimaru and Tahomaru, easy for me to say, mother goes through to make sure that Hyakimaru can have a chance at living, because deep down she knows that while he may have been born of demons, it's still her child.
Yeah. Hell, she even became a hypocrite of her own words.
A huge
Yeah.
hypocrite.
She said, I will do what I must for the land," but then she straight up goes back on that and is like, "I'm a mother first and foremost, and I will do whatever it takes for my child." And it's like
Yeah.
it's
But
depressing.
again, though, that goes back to what you said, that it's been shown time and time again throughout history that mothers will do anything for the well-being of their own children, and it's just another example of it. And I thought it was brilliantly shown, especially toward the end of the show, with what happened with uh, Hyakimaru and Tahomaru's mother,
Oh, it was. I'm
because
still
she
upset
wants
about it.
she wants she wants so badly to be able to save them both, but deep down she knows that she can't.
I'm still
And
of
I
the
don't
opinion that she could have saved herself and her son, but that's
I don't know. I don't know if she could have. It's an interesting thing to think about, but I'm not sure if she could have. I certainly don't think she could have been able to live with herself. But I certainly don't think she could have saved both Hyakimaru and Tahomaru, because Tahomaru had become so antithetical to what Hyakimaru was.
he did, but he changed pace after a while.
Oh yeah, certainly after he got stabbed by Hyakimaru at the end.
Okay, well, yeah.
Nothing like a fucking sword to the heart to change your mind. Oh man, we're getting slightly ahead of ourselves, so we're going straight to the end of the fucking show. But yeah, the arc with Mio, the 2 episode arc there with Mio, I really loved it. And also something else we got from that. So during that 2 episode arc, Hyakimaru also fought a demon that ended up biting off one of his own legs. An actual leg that he had already recovered from the demons. And so what he gets instead is he gets his voice back. And one of the things that the priest guy actually says this to Dororo right after this whole battle happens, because he sees in Hyakimaru the what's sort of happening to him as he's going through this journey and as he's slaying these demons to get his body back. He says the phrase, "You better hope the beast that comes out of the cave isn't a monster," referring to Hyakimaru being like a bear that was in a cave hibernating. And you better hope that what comes out isn't a monster. And it's like, I relate this to like your typical revenge story, in the sense that a lot of people who go on these revenge like rampages end up becoming the very thing they despise in the course of it. And the priest is basically saying, you better watch out, or he's going to become the demon that he's trying to slay. It's a really good phrase to sort of drive that home.
It really is. It's not just him becoming one, but of the choices he makes, whether to become a human or demon, and how he goes about
Mm-hmm.
doing things. And this repeatedly shows itself over and over until the very last episode. Even you just can't tell what he's gonna do and what route he's gonna go. Like,
Well, and it's almost as the story progresses and as he's slaying more and more of these demons and getting more and more of his body back, you can almost sense it in Hyakimaru, where he's almost, it's like an increased bloodlust the further he goes on this journey.
you can see that he gets more angry, more and less hesitant about what he wants. He knows what was done to him, and he wants what is his,
Yes.
even though
Yeah.
the price of it is like
Well,
untold.
it's it's portrayed very well in the question that keeps getting asked of him: why do you want your body back? Because it's mine. That's the only answer he always gives. Why do you want your body back? Because it's mine.
Yeah, and
It's a
that is
that's a good enough that should be a good enough reason for anyone, right? I mean, why do you want your autonomy? Because it's mine.
yeah. But in this case, it was more than just his. What he had to give in exchange is the lives of who knows how many people and a whole land's prosperity, and that's not
Yeah.
something little. That's huge.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, and it I'm pretty sure it was the priest who ended up saying this. It's saying that you have an entire land riding on one person. And it's like that's a big burden for one person to bear. I don't think it's necessarily fair to put all that on one person, honestly.
It's not fair at all. But what else? What else can you ask for?
I don't know, and it's another one of those moral quandaries. I mean, how much do you have to sacrifice for it to be enough? That's a good question, man. And speaking of sacrifice, this actually leads into another character I wanted to talk about. Dr. Jukai, the one that actually finds Dororo and gives him his artificial limbs and sort of trains him in sword fighting and everything. Um, when you see his flashback when he's, I think it's in episode 5 or 4, you see what he did before he became a doctor. He worked for a really tyrannical warlord named Shiba, and one of the things that he was responsible for doing was essentially crucifying soldiers of the enemy. And you actually see him doing this, and at some point he realizes this isn't right. This is insane. And he sort of changes ways, becomes a doctor, and starts developing these prosthetics for people to use that have lost limbs. And he does it as a way. Well, first of all, he does it as a way to sort of atone for what he's done, knowing full well that for all the sin that he's performed, he can't really atone for it unless he dies. Which is why I think that he goes around to all these battlefields where people have fallen and gives dead soldiers prosthetics. Because he knows that it's something that he can't, that he took all of this away from people in the past. So the only way he can atone for it really is through giving back what's already been taken from these other people.
It's
It's a really good redemption story.
it really is, and the fact that you see it happening eventually, like, is what the ultimate payoff is. But the journey to get there, it was filled with so much discussion and so much grief. That's what made it really excellent.
Yeah, that's something else I genuinely loved about the story that was being told here is that almost all of the characters you meet throughout this story are morally very gray. Like, some of them do good things but for the wrong reasons, and some of them do bad things but for the right reasons. And it presents so many moral questions like, well, what would you do in this situation? What would you do if you had this thrust upon you? I think the Dr. Jukai is a really good example of that. Like, if you had committed atrocities in the past, how would you go about
Living.
atoning for them?
How would you even go on
Well,
living with
that.
yourself?
Yeah, how would you go on living, and then how would you just try to atone for them? What was another really good one was Sabame, the crazy eyes, the frogman that you called him. About how like he wants to be a good leader for his people, but he doesn't know how. And so he turns to the demons to tell him basically how to be a good lord and how to be how to take care of his land. And it's like, well, we'll take care of it. You just feed us.
And it's
I
like
mean,
it's somewhat understandable where he does what he has to do, but
mm,
you also have to question, like, why did he not think of alternatives? Like, why did it have to
yeah,
be him to do that? Why couldn't he have just given power to someone else instead?
yeah. Well, that kind of goes into what Daigo did at the very beginning of the series, where he makes the deal with the demons. I mean, it's something big, but I guess we can talk about it. Do we? I mean, we got to talk about the morals of what
Yeah,
he did,
let's get to that
because
later, I say.
no, I want to talk about this now because we've mentioned it.
Okay.
Um, so I'm not a parent, you're not a parent, but I assume that if we were, we would, if we were considered good parents, we would want the best possible outcome for our children, right?
I mean, I would hope so.
And I think that in Daigo's mind, that's what he was doing when he made the deal with the demons, even though he did it for very selfish reasons. He wanted, because what he wanted most of all at the time, or at least that's what he said that he wanted, was not necessarily, he did want an heir, of course, but he also wanted prosperity for his land, which had been ravaged by famine.
And prosperity
And
equals
he
power.
and prosperity definitely equals power for
And
sure.
power
So
was
he was doing it
all
for,
the rage in those days, in the days of
yes.
having lords.
So he's basically making a plea like, give me what I want, take whatever you want from me, and we'll go from there. I don't think he factored in the fact that what they would take from him was the
Firstborn
heir
child.
that was being born. Yeah. I don't think that he made that distinction, and it's something that I think he eventually came to, I'm assuming he eventually came to regret. And it's even something in the later episodes where he's saying, "Did I make the right choice? Did I make the right choice?" Because he says multiple times through like the first half of the show, it's like, "Well, I'm a lord. I don't make mistakes." And then in the final episode, he's like, "Did I make the right choice all the way back then?"
And that's
So I
what's
think even
interesting.
he
It's
knows
not
that he did the wrong
he's
thing.
not some black and white character. Even he is a thinking person who questions himself.
Well, yeah, it's almost like in the very beginning of the story, he's almost presented as this like stereotypical mustache twirling villain who's only in it for himself, and he may indeed only be in it for himself. But as the show progresses and you learn more and more about his character, he almost becomes a very sympathetic villain because he was a person who felt like his back was up against the wall and he didn't have anywhere else to turn. So he turned to the most convenient, I guess, scapegoat, for the lack of a better term, that he could by making a deal with the demons.
I wouldn't say scapegoat, more the most convenient choice possible.
Maybe. Well, and they say that people who are desperate make the most convenient choices they have. So, if he felt desperate enough to do that, I guess he must have been pretty desperate.
Yeah, I mean we saw what the land was turning into and what it turned to at the end of the anime.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only take a guess at how bad it was beforehand, before
Oh yeah.
Hyakimaru was born.
Oh yeah.
It
I mean, and it's kind of hinted at that it had been this way for a little
Yeah,
while.
and it does make me wonder though, like it really does. Why did people stay there? You can just pack up and move.
And move.
Seriously.
Especially if you had power and money like Daigo did, you could just pack up and move.
And
I guess in that day, there. I guess back in those days, because this takes place during the Sengoku period. Um, the thought was, well, you have to defend your land because it's yours.
Yeah, which is always understandable, but when the whole land has gone to shit and people are dropping left and right, like you should probably pick up a hint to like GTFO.
Maybe, but then again, maybe it's like the same thing that Hyakimaru says when people ask, why do you want your body back? Because it's mine. You could ask Daigo the same reason. Why do you stay here? Because this land is mine.
It's quite possible. I do wish like they talked about it, but they never got around to all that, which is
No, I just think it's well, moving back then was a bigger deal than it was today. But anyway, I
they
mean
had
that's
less
not really.
materialistic stuff though.
I think I don't know. I don't know how realistic that would be though in the time of the samurai because it was a very violent time.
Yeah, filled with bandits and so many different dangers. Yeah.
That is a really good segue. Thank you so much for saying bandits because now I want to talk about what we found out in episode 9. Episode 9 is a huge flashback to Dororo's mother and father. And whose father is a leader of, they called it a band of brigands, which is basically a band of outlaws.
And
Um,
they were trying to do good by people is what they were attempting to do, which was
they
respectable.
were certainly trying to do good by each other for
Oh,
sure.
without a doubt.
Um, because they had this philosophy of basically all for one for all kind of mentality, which in and of itself is kind of an honorable mentality, especially when you have multiple people working for you. But I'm really, I'm episode 9. I think was a really good episode. Um, and it's probably the only time I've ever said that about an episode that is almost entirely a flashback because it's something I've criticized anime for doing far too often is overutilizing flashbacks. Naruto. But I think this was done really, really well. I also love the fact that anytime you see a flashback in this show, it's in black and white. I don't know if you noticed that, but anytime it was a flat, I don't. Well, it wasn't specifically black and white, but it was like a monotone color. I thought that was an interesting art, art direction choice, on their part. But getting to learn about Dororo's mother and father, I think lent a lot of credence to Dororo as a character, especially seeing what she grew up in and what she had to come from, because she had to watch both her mother and her father die. Father got killed while raiding bandits raiding another village. um, and then Dororo's mother died of starvation, which is a terrible way to go, by the way.
It was absolutely horrifying.
Um, Especially the fact that they're both betrayed by who is portrayed to be um, Dororo's mother and father's best friend, Itachi. Who the second I learned that his name was Itachi, I was looking at his eyes like, Itachi, really?
Oh my god.
Itachi, you've aged.
Become much more of a
But
scumbag.
yeah, and much more of a scumbag. um, but yeah, being betrayed by your best friend. Whew, it's a hell of a thing. And then the amazing thing about that is we learn later that Dororo's mother ends up like they become homeless grifters, which is what Dororo is, and when you first meet her, and they're kind of wandering to and fro, basically begging for subsistence, and they end up going to this what is kind of shown to be a soup kitchen led by samurai, which was a little weird. But the person they run into kind of orchestrating this thing is Itachi. And I thought the thing about her holding out her hands to take boiling soup into her hands to feed to Dororo was like really powerful moment. It's like that's what I mean by, mothers will do anything for their children. She didn't have a bowl to put the soup in, so she puts out her hands in like this bowl shape, and then they just dump hot, boiling fucking stew into her hands, and then Dororo just drinks it out of her cupped hands as they're sitting there, the skin's getting burnt on there.
And like watching that, it was just seriously depressing. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I. But that's a mother's love, man. It doesn't get no more powerful than that. It really doesn't. And then right after, of course, she doesn't take any of the food. She gives it all to Dororo. And then the last time you see her is they're kind of traveling to the next village, and you see her. They're going by the field of spider lilies. I did some research, and I found out that in like Japanese culture mythology, spider lilies are referred to as flowers of the afterlife. How poignant is it that she falls down and collapses to her death of starvation in a field of spider lilies?
The fact that
I thought it was good, man. That's some good symbolism right there.
it was really good symbolism, but at the same time, like, wow, they really had to do all that. Make it
Mm-hmm.
that depressing.
And then we find out in another flashback that Dororo's father went and hid a bunch of fucking money.
Like,
And
enough
then
for it
that's
to
what that's
really
basically what
matter, too, is the crazy part.
that's kind of what a lot of the second half of the story is dedicated to. Them sort of turns into a treasure hunt, really. We find out that Dororo's father had essentially tattooed a half of a map onto the back of Dororo's mother. And then I don't know exactly how they did it, but Dororo has something on her back, which when her skin is heated up, it reveals the other half of the map. I They didn't really explain how that was done,
Some
but
sort of
it was an
invisible
ingenious
ink.
way to hide it. That's what I'm assuming that. Well, it has to be like heat reactive because the only time you saw it was when Dororo was like the first time you saw it was in the hot spring, and the second time you see it is when Dororo's back is to a fire. What an ingenious way to hide a map, though. um, but yeah, like this, a lot of the second half of the story is dedicated to this sort of treasure hunt where, and Itachi knows about this, and it's sort of like a race to see who can get to the treasure first. I thought that was an interesting like twist on the story where it becomes sort of this monster of the week kind of thing to let's go find the treasure while fighting demons along the way. I don't know. It was a sort of tonal shift, but I think it was a tonal shift in the story that
It
worked.
was really natural, is what helped it out.
It did. It did seem very natural. Especially once they got to the cape where the money was hidden, and you sort of had three different factions all at one time. Although one of the factions wasn't even aware of the fact that there was money on this island,
Yep, it was just
because
another demon and his human. Well, their human, I should say. Should we talk about Shark Boy a little bit?
oh, Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I mean, yeah, sure.
No Lava Girl, just Shark Boy. um,
I'm kind of surprised we didn't get a Lava
oh, that would
Girl.
have been hilarious, but it would have also like been breaking a lot of things. I would have been a little bit annoyed. Um, so one of the two of the demons were sharks, and they specifically had a human that helped them, and they actually had a bond with this human. It was, this was all during the treasure hunt arc. It was really interesting how they showed off the relationship between that human and the demons. It's like they actually
Can I say something about that?
okay.
So they said the word shark a lot in the two episodes that revolved around
Uh-huh.
this. And every time they said the word shark, this will tell you the kind of
Oh
person I
god,
am.
I know where you're
Every
going.
single time they said the word shark, I just kept thinking of Sumigi's
Yep.
song from Sweetness and Light, Same, 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 Same. Oh man, I'm a terrible person.
God damn it.
Anyway, I like the fact that Shark Boy was batshit crazy.
He was, but at the same time, like, you saw where he was coming from. He had a actual relationship with these sharks. Demon sharks,
Yeah,
for fuck's sake. And, like, it was really cool.
he was certainly more torn up about the fact that they died than anyone else. Hell, he wasn't even broken up about his own death.
He really wasn't. Like, all he cared about were those sharks. And
I like how I like how one of the sharks you have to like one of the sharks only took like 6 swords to the gut and just keeled over dead, and the other one took like forever to die.
well, we saw once one of the sharks died, the other one actually ate it and became even stronger out of anger
Yeah,
and feeding on
this
another
cannibal
demon.
shark, man. Don't piss off cannibal shark.
And like you saw it gaining a full demon form. That was terrifying,
Yeah,
let me tell you.
yeah, and then walking on land. That was even more terrifying. God, when sharks can walk on land, we're all fucked. We are fucked when that happens. But yeah, I really like that that whole arc when they're on like it's not really an island, but it's a cave or
Cove.
a cape. Cove. Yeah, cove. There you go. The only way to get to this part of the cove is by boat, though, because the land is too craggy and rocky. I thought that was really well done. I thought for what was pretty much a monster of the week kind of thing, they did a really good job with making the sharks pretty fucking terrifying and certainly upping the stakes with the sharks.
There was a certain
I thought
sense
it
of
did a really
danger with them more than
I
anything.
thought I thought that did a really good job because at this point in the story, Dororo and Ikakimaru had been separated, and I thought the way that storyline played out was a really great way to bring them back together.
It really was. Like you've seen them go up against some demons before, and like they make it out fine. Like sometimes a bit hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but like they end up fine. But this time they're separated, and Dororo really relies on Hyakimaru for a lot of things. They rely on each other
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of things, obviously. The relationship goes both ways, but Dororo relies on him for safety, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
without him there, there was some serious tension. It's like, what the hell was gonna happen?
Yeah, it would. Well, it certainly upped the stakes, as I said. That it like, all right, guys, this is starting to look pretty grim. People are dropping like flies, and people were like all of Itachi's crew end up dead, including Itachi himself. Although he does, his last request is to take me to this fucking treasure. I want to see it.
Like, I don't even give a shit. I'm gonna die. Just, I want to at least see it with my own eyes before I die.
It's funny because like even the Itachi was not really a huge character, but the story arc that he had, most of it through flashbacks, um, was really good because it shows that everything he does, he becomes blinded by greed. Like the whole reason that he betrayed Dororo's mother and father and originally was because of greed. He didn't think he was getting paid enough. So he goes to one of the rival groups. I think it was actually like a
No,
samurai clan
it
or
was
something.
the
Was it
samurais that he went to,
okay?
the specific lord
Yeah,
that they
and
were
then
occupying the territory of.
and told them that they were about to attack. and all because he didn't think he was getting paid enough. And then he ends up dying on that cove, and he knows that he's about to die, and the last thing he can think of is, I need to see this treasure.
I can
It's like his entire life he's been blinded by greed.
I can respect him for that though. Like he knows what he's about, and he died as he lived.
I mean, he didn't become a hypocrite at the end. You can definitely say that. It's like, I'm dying. I never cared about that treasure anyway. It's like, nope, take me to the treasure. I know I'm bleeding out, but fuck that.
That gave credence to
Oh
his
man.
character. I appreciated that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely played out really well. I'm kind of glad that he didn't really get redeemed at the end. He was still the same greedy bastard he always was, even at the end. And even like the last thing he sees is mountains of fucking money, and he just smiles, dies.
Yeah.
Um,
Now then.
and I tell you the thing that I never I had a suspicion that what was in that cave might not have been like actual money based on what the priest had said, because he sees the map on Dororo's back and says this can like change worlds and change people, and I'm like, is this some kind of power that's been hidden away?
I would have been like really thrown off if that's what it came out to be, but I'm glad it was just like money.
Oh yeah, it certainly makes it more relatable to the average viewer. It's like, well, yeah, you can change a lot of lives with this money. Okay, so we're getting towards the end here. I do want to talk about one thing. So this story this anime has one, I would say, one breather episode in it, and that's episode 19, where they go to Hyakimaru breaks his swords, and they need to get him reforged. So they go to a village that has like a master swordsmith in it, and they want to get the swords reforged. And they end up getting Hyakimaru and Dororo end up getting cursed by this sort of like a trickster or
A
prankster
trickster demon.
ghoul.
Or ghoul. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted, first of all, I thought for what is essentially a breather episode, it was done really really well, because it does have some comedy in it that we hadn't seen so far. I mean, there has been moments of comedy here and there, but this is the first time I can actually say the episode itself was kind of funny, because it's so ludicrous what goes on in it. Um, but also that it does move the story along a little bit, even as a breather episode. And I also want to bring this up because what the trickster ghoul does is curses them to say things that they don't mean. And there's a stand in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that does this exact
Oh god,
thing.
are you serious?
I am absolutely serious. It actually is in part 5, which is almost finished airing now. The stand is called Talking Head. And it does almost this exact thing. The power is it causes people to lie.
Well, alright then. That is.
So now I know where Araki got this fucking idea for this stand.
I mean, it's quite
All
possible
these
that it
years
was an
later.
inspiration. It really is.
I actually have no doubt that it might have been. Um, but yeah, I really wanted to bring this up because number one, it's a great breather episode, and also it's fucking JoJo's connection.
Oh my god. I did like the breather episode because like one, it was a bit lighter than everything that's been happening and what it's about to go into. It was just
Mm.
nice and easy. The pace was a little bit off because it was suddenly interjected in there, but again, it was still nice to have it there. And another thing, even though this is a breather episode, a filler episode, if you will, even though it's that, it still mattered because it showed Hyakimaru and Dororo's relationship to each other, and it was actually really cool to watch that. Like, even though it was a
It's almost it almost like it forces them both to realize what they mean to each other.
exactly, like, the episode itself was just whatever, but the fact that it still had things in the episode that mattered, even though it was a light
Mm-hmm.
episode, that, like, I really like that, and I wish a lot more anime would do stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I and you use the word filler, but I actually think this was in the original manga. So it doesn't it's not technically
Okay,
filler,
not filler then.
but it feels like it could be
Yeah.
filler. But in a good way, in a good way. Not necessarily you think of filler. It's like no.
This was a episode done
This
right
is
for sure.
yeah, this is definitely certainly a breather episode done right. But I also think its placement in the story is perfect because the preceding 5 episodes is where everything just goes to hell in a handbasket really quick.
Yeah, like once that ball
Because
got
that's when you
rolling,
get
it did not stop. It only escalated.
yeah, it's basically where and of course the very next one is the story of the Nue, which is where they go face like this chimera looking beast, and that's where Dororo witnesses Hyakimaru kill this beast, and it's one of the only 2 times where they he defeats a demon and he doesn't get any body parts back, and it's when he realizes, oh, I got to go back to Daigo's land to get the rest of my body back. But before he does, he beats the fuck out of this already dead
Yeah.
demon. And
Like,
it's
it was just
Dororo witnesses that and is
mutilating
like,
a corpse at that point.
yeah, and Dororo's like, oh god, he actually might be turning into the
Yeah.
demons he despises.
And it was really
I thought,
interesting to watch because it's like you got to see Hyakimaru really angry, and you're like, is he really about to go down that route? Like, he's blinded
mm-hmm,
by his rage.
yep. And then you go straight into basically what is the final battle, um, which I thought was it was really great. It took place basically for 4 episodes, and the pacing of it I
Oh, it
couldn't
was
have asked for it to be better.
perfect. My God.
I thought when I saw this and we're going to the final stretch, I thought 4 episodes seems like a lot, but okay. And then I thought the pacing was just pitch perfect. Um, the God, the flaming horse thing was pretty
Oh
cool.
my
I'll be
God. Like,
honest.
we saw it was in the OP.
It's a fucking Rapidash.
We it literally was. It was literally a Rapidash. Um we saw the flaming horse in the OP and all that, but we didn't know exactly what the fuck or when it was gonna happen, or if it was just thrown in there for our confusion or whatever. But no,
Mm-hmm.
they even the horse, even the flaming horse, had a fucking backstory, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, holy
Yeah.
shit, they really went out there and did all this. Like, I have to say, first and foremost, older style writing definitely had something else going on for it, because, like, they get details and, like, stuff like this really beautifully correct, and I really like
Mm.
that. But yeah,
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah,
Um,
we see Hyakimaru and this flaming horse get together, and they proceed to get revenge.
not in a
Oh
bestiality
my
kind of
God,
way.
shut up. Um they get together and they start fucking shit up is like the only way I can put it, because holy crap. It was like a
Yeah,
storm moving through a battlefield. They could not be
to
stopped.
say the least. To say the absolute least. I also like the fact that uh, during that battle, with the flaming horse and Tahomaru and Hyakimaru and what's his two henchmen's name? I can never remember what Tahumaru's
Koga, I think, is one of
Mutsu,
them.
Mutsu and Hyogo.
Oh,
Mutsu and Hyogo. One of them is an archer. The other one has like the big pummel that he just beats people to death with. I like the fact that Hyogo is trying to beat the horse, and after the horse has been stabbed, and the horse is like, "Nah, fucker," and just grabs his neck and rips his head off.
yeah, it was
I'm like, "Holy
it
fuck!"
was brutal. Like, we've seen some absolutely brutal things in this anime, but when it showed that scene, I was just like, whoa, that went out there
Yeah.
real fast.
Can I also say something else? Like when I was watching this, I find this very difficult to believe this is on in the '60s. Like it's pretty fucking violent.
Probably because it was animated helped it
I don't know.
be that violent.
This seems like something. This seems like something it would be helpful to actually go back and watch the original anime to see if that one was not quite as violent.
Possibly. We would have to see, but I don't know. Either way, the fact that they showed that, it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, well, and then the final battle. You find out that Tahomaru and his two little henchmen they went to the Hall of Hell and sort of made their own little deal with the demons, and so one of the henchmen gets an arm, the other henchman gets an arm, and then Tahomaru ends up getting both of Hyakimaru's eyes, which that was a little weird, I'll be honest with you. The three eyes on the same head, like I was a little out there.
It was, but it was really cool because I don't know, it just looked cool to me.
Oh, the way it was done, I think, was really good. It looked weird. um, but it's and then right as Hyakimaru comes back and he sees them and they both have, both of the henchmen have an arm and then Tahomaru has now three eyes. He sees that those are all his and he's like, you, those are mine. I'm taking them with me. Bye.
And he proceeds to go into an absolute rage. Like he
Ape
was
shit.
he was mad before it, but then he just loses it all and like he doesn't
Yeah.
see reason or like even like understand that he's fighting his brother necessarily. He's just like, mine, give it back now. And he's using the violent method to get it all back.
And then how the finale brought together a lot of the recurring characters that we had seen throughout the show. It brought together Dr. Jukai, the priest, Dororo, Hyakimaru, Tahomaru, Daigo.
A lot of the main
Hyakimaru
cast.
and Tahomaru's, brought back the mother. For the life of me, I finally remembered what her name is. Hyakimaru's mother, Nui no Kata.
That's a weird name, but okay.
I know, I know it is. I think everyone just calls her Nui though. But anyway, I like how it brought all of them together back in the same place, and then the priest is like, must be what destiny feels like." And I'm like, it's kind of what it feels like. It feels like this is a story that's been telling itself for so long that it needs to come to its own conclusion. I think it came to a conclusion really well, where you have the place burning in fire, and then you have Hyakimaru and Tahomaru facing each other one-on-one, which I'm really glad it ended that way, because that's kind of how I wanted it to end. Something else that I haven't really mentioned is that this show kind of portrays sword fights realistically, in a sense, and the fact that in reality most sword fights don't last more than 90 seconds,
if not even less than that, because
like anytime you see an actual sword fight and not like a play sword fight, not where people are acting, like an actual sword fight, most of them last 90 seconds or much less. And you see that in Dororo, where most of the sword fights don't tend to last very long. I thought it was really good. I wonder if part of that was because of like the limitations of the time the story was told.
Maybe?
But on the other hand, it lends credence to a sense of realism. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else story wise that we needed to talk about. We pretty much have gone over everything story wise. I guess we can talk about like the final few scenes in the show, where after defeating after Hyakimaru defeats Tahomaru and gets all his entire body back. First of all, when he first sees this guy and he's like, "Sky, pretty," and then he looks at Dororo and says, "Dororo, pretty."
It was just super cute. Like, Dororo was just blushing, like, oh my god.
Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I thought that when Hyakimaru goes, after everything's all said and done, and he goes back to the Hall of Hell and he finds Daigo standing there, or sitting there, really. I think Daigo assumed he was going to be killed by Hyakimaru when he got there. And Hyakimaru kind of raises his sword like he's about to run it through his neck. But then he doesn't. He actually stabs his helmet instead and then just turns around and leaves.
And it was actually really telling that he chose to do that. Like, you see, in the end, that's what he chose. He chose the path of being human instead of
Mm-hmm.
turning the other way, turning into a demon.
Because everything before that was telling him to kill Daigo, and then he gets to the point where he can actually kill Daigo, and he doesn't do it. I like that. I like that a lot.
Like, he
Thought it was a great way. I thought it was a great way to wrap up Hyakimaru's character arc. I really did.
it was wonderfully done, and like it was a payoff
It's almost
to
poetic.
watch this journey that he went on, and he finally chose what he was going to do.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta throw it out there, like the final scene with where you see Dororo running across a bridge, and then it's like flashes to adult Dororo running towards Hyakimaru. I thought that was really
I
good
think that
too,
was
and
teenage
the fact
Dororo.
that,
Dororo.
well, maybe, oh, let's say
Older,
older
yeah, for
Dororo,
sure, older.
much older, many years older. I also like the fact that Hyakimaru doesn't actually go back to
I kind of
Dororo.
hated that, honestly. I was like, yo,
Really?
you're like, you said, like, you're going off to do something real quick, and you just disappear all of a sudden instead of, saying, hey, I have to figure things, for myself now that I'm done with my journey. I'll see you later. No, he just disappears on her, and I'm like, what the hell?
What the fuck? I mean, yeah, I think a lot of this had to do with something that they did change from the original story. So the original story has, instead of them having to defeat 12 demons, they have to defeat 48. Um, Obviously, that doesn't happen in this one. So I think part of the reason that they have this written into the ending is that it just made it made it a lot easier to wrap up in 24 episodes.
Um, I mean, for sure. Like, otherwise, the pacing would have been really off, and like, you would have feel like you were on a roller coaster. I'm glad they chose to do it that way. It definitely helped everything out, and
Hmm.
they did it right. Is the main thing to say. They did it right, and that's what mattered.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a good ending. You can certainly see that a lot of these story arcs have been wrapped up, um, and that I also like that it doesn't spoon feed you an answer as to what happens to Dororo and Hyakimaru. It sort of leaves that open ended to a certain degree to let you figure out what happens for yourself. I like that,
I wish it was a little bit
and
more
also,
like
well,
they show what happens, but at the same time, it's like it's
that very last scene sort of implies that they do meet again
Yeah,
eventually.
that is the thing. Like it does show that it looks like they're going towards each other. Like it's not you, you can't say it for certain, but it definitely looks like it, and I do like that. Like that definitely
Mm.
makes it better. Like they do eventually get back together.
I think the best way to wrap up this spoiler cast is to talk about some of the more technical aspects of the anime.
Oh boy.
Um, I want well, I do want to talk about the music. I love the score of the anime because most of it was made using traditional Japanese instruments. I thought that was a really great choice. It certainly lended to the atmosphere of the story being told.
It was definitely beautiful, and
And
it sounded of a much older style, which helped.
yeah, yeah. And of course, I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the OPs and the EDs. Let me ask you something, Shinoda. Which OP did you prefer, the first or the second one?
I don't know. I really don't.
They're
They
both
were
good.
so beautiful and so well done. I really don't know which one I liked over the other.
I gotta be honest with you. I really, uh, I really think I like the first one slightly more than the second one.
And for what reason is that?
I think I like the visuals more in the first one than the second one. I don't know, just like all the fire and I mean that has that hook line, "Give me fire." I can't hit a high note to save my life.
But no, it was really nice, and you certainly remember it. Like, I don't think we're gonna forget that song for a while. It was memorable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. They're both great. Let's leave it at that. They're both pretty damn
Um,
good.
Another thing I want to
Um.
add on, of the ED specifically, if you
mm,
actually pay attention to it, and you don't necessarily have to watch the ED every single time. If you actually look at it,
But in
yeah,
this
in
case, you
this
should.
case you should. You actually see it change over time. You see, you're seeing it through the view of Hyakimaru, and you see the details on the ED becoming more and more clear. They actually didn't release the full song with the visuals until the very end of the season.
Hmm. It's a very
Yeah,
interesting design
it
choice.
was
Very interesting
it
directorial
was
choice for
really
sure.
cool that that's the way they decide to do things. I really like the fact that that's what they did.
Yeah. I do want to say that story wise, like some people have criticized this show for being a very formulaic monster of the week show, which I think is a fair criticism. But also in terms of like old style, old school storytelling, I think this is a really good example of how good old school storytelling could be.
It-
Like, yeah, it is the monster of the week formulaic thing, but it does it in a way where
They set it up
it's
with a purpose. Like it wasn't just any
yes,
monster.
that's what I'm trying to say, that
Yeah.
it has a
It wasn't
purpose.
just like, oh, random monster of the week. It's like, no, he is after a goal, and these monsters serve as the ones that have his goal.
Well, and something else I wanted to say is there's so many of those old stories that have a monster of the week formula. At the end of every episode, a massive reset button is hit, and nothing from before really even matters anymore. So, but that doesn't happen with Dororo because you see injuries that happen in previous episodes and previous fight carry over into the next fight.
Definitely, and
And that's something that you didn't see a lot with old school storytelling like this, where it did have a monster of the week flavor to
like
it.
I remember when Hyakimaru lost his leg that he just got back. I was just like, what the
Mm.
hell? He just actually lost his leg. Is he not getting his leg back? But
Like,
luckily,
are you for real right now, bruh?
I really
Bruh.
was. I was like, oh my god, are you serious? But no,
Like, bruh, this isn't made of wood. It's not gonna grow
like
back, man.
luckily he did end up getting it back, but it easily could have gone in the direction of no, he didn't get it, doesn't get it back, and it's just stuff like
Yeah.
that is really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a fair criticism to say that it does have a very formulaic monster of the week structure, but I think that it in terms of those type of storytelling structures, I think this is an example of a story that does it right, where it doesn't hit a massive reset button at the end of every fight. Um, but something else that people have criticized it for that I think is a very fair criticism is its animation. Okay, so this is one part where I think you and I definitely agree that we have to poo-poo this a little bit.
Yeah.
This was done primarily by Studio Mappa in conjunction with Tezuka Productions. Now, Studio Mappa has made some really good anime recently. They made last 2018 Zombieland Saga, which we pretty much all here on the podcast really liked. And then back in 2016, they made Yuri on Ice, which was pretty much universally acclaimed. And Studio Mappa has developed a reputation for having great quality storytelling, with great animation in the first half of what they produce, and then definitely cutting corners in the second half of shows they produce. And this anime is no exception. Following episode 12, you can definitely tell in many, many spots where they were very definitely cutting corners with the animation. Especially any scene where it was a wide shot that had characters in it, that it was basically outlines with no discernible details. And it's sad to see that. I'm sure that it will get cleaned up for a Blu-ray release. At least I hope it does. This is definitely something I would like to own on Blu-ray for myself. I definitely hope it gets cleaned up a little bit for a release like that. But it's also something that I think you and I, Shinoda, both have to criticize Mappa for, that they're starting to develop a habit of doing this.
Unfortunately, I have to agree, and you you really
And
don't.
they did it with Yuri on
Yeah,
Ice
you
too.
don't notice it too much. I will say that straight up. You don't notice it that much, but you do notice it little bits here and there. And this isn't one of those like you have to be paying attention to notice it. Like no, you'll just straight up notice it here and there. Unfortunately, which is
The problem is it's not even really subtle when it happens. Like, it's very noticeable when it happens.
yeah, and that's what makes it even the more sad. Now, it's not like it happens a lot in like the big scenes where
No,
all
no,
that
no,
matters.
no.
It's just
It's
like
really in the
yeah, it's
smaller
in smaller
scenes.
scenes, transition scenes, wide shots scenes. It's in stuff like that where it doesn't matter as much, so I suppose that's some excuse for them, and I think that might not be too bad. But still, the fact that
Hmm.
that's how they chose to do it, it's a bit sad.
Yeah. So I definitely think we need to criticize it for that. It definitely deserves it. Overall, I would say the animation is, I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. It just has moments where it goes to, let's let's be honest, it goes to PowerPoint levels, which is really really sad considering it's such a good
Yeah.
story. But this is again something that Mappa is sadly getting a reputation for. Where in the first half of things they make, it'll be really great animation, and then after the halfway point, they definitely are cutting corners. Which I hope they stop doing that because I genuinely like the stuff that Mappa produces in terms of story stuff.
I hope so, or maybe
Uh,
they should partner up with another studio for animations. But
Maybe, or just contract out another studio to do stuff like in between
although that
animations.
might cost even more money, and yeah,
Who knows? Yeah, but to wrap this up, I'm going to ask you a
okay.
question. What's overall score out of 10? What would you give it?
Overall,
What is Dororo in your mind?
I think it's a solid 8 out of 10 for me, I think. Because
It's exactly what I was gonna say. Just a solid eight
there
out
were
of 10.
certain things here and there that were downsides, but overall, especially that story, oh my god, that was amazing.
Yeah, I would say if they cleaned up the animation a little bit, I'd give it a
Oh,
nine out of
for
10.
sure. And then there's like there were the animations that were actually amazing when Hyakimaru was
Mm-hmm.
on the horse, or when he was just going off, things like that. It definitely helped the show, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah. Um, it's good. It's great. I'm glad. So this is an example of something we had talked about in a previous episode of the podcast about the brotherhood treatment, and I think that overall this was a successful brotherhood treatment for Dororo.
Yeah, it was.
I the only thing that could probably be improved is the animation, as we said. So I'm glad that a new generation like myself, who never got to see the original Dororo or has gotten around to reading the manga, has gotten a chance to experience this now. I really hope that we can get more stuff like this in the future with these older manga and anime series getting the Brotherhood treatment like this. And hopefully, something else that I hope happens because of this is I hope that someone can pick up the license to the original Dororo anime so I can stream it legally. I'm hoping maybe someone like Sentai could pick it up. They did pick up the original Legend of Galactic Heroes OVA series and release it on a beautiful box set, which is a month's worth of rent for me. Um, but I'd like to see someone like them pick it up, turn the original Dororo into like a Blu-ray box set, and then maybe someone like Crunchyroll or High Dive or someone like them can pick it up to stream it. Mostly because I can't think of anywhere online I'd even be able to watch this legally.
Well, it's on Amazon Prime, but
No, I'm talking about the
oh, the
original
original.
Dororo, from
Okay, yeah,
1969.
sorry.
That's what I'm talking. I'm hoping that someone can pick that up and get it like a nice physical Blu-ray
It really
release for
would
that.
be
The original
it would be
69
nice
one.
if that's if they could do that, because like I know for certain a lot of people now want to like go check out the original just to see like the differences even.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not sure of anywhere you can watch it legally. If it is, please let us know in the comments below because I don't know. And also, if someone could, get the manga, like a new, maybe like an omnibus version of the manga, that'd be nice too. Hard to believe, after doing some research, hard to believe that this manga originally got canceled before it got finished.
It got canceled before it got finished? What?
It got canceled actually in the middle of doing the original anime. It eventually moved to a different manga magazine and finished there, but it did get canceled in the magazine it started out in.
Still, that's a legitimate surprise. Like, holy shit.
It is. I was very surprised to find that out myself. I think with that, though, we can definitely say that this spoiler cast for Dororo is over. So thank you out there for dropping in to listen to us. We hope you enjoyed it because we always enjoy bringing this stuff to you. If you want to check out previous episodes of the podcast, you can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can join us on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Shoot us an email if you have any questions or if you have ideas for topics you would like for us to talk about in the future. Links to all these things will be down below in the description. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, Shinoda.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Give me fire. I can't hit high notes.
Please don't try again.
Light it up, baby.